All right. Well, thank you everybody for coming out to hear first steps of starting your small business. My name is Nick Rudolph. I am the Baltimore Regional Director with Maryland Capital Enterprises. And we're going to talk this evening just a little bit about things to consider, a few steps to take before starting your business, and then talking a little bit about some documents you're going to need to form once your business is started, including your business plan and your cash flow projections. So let's just go ahead and get started. So a little bit about Maryland Capital Enterprises. We've been around since 1998. We started off doing small loans on the Lower Eastern Shore. We grew, developed a relationship with the Small Business Administration or the SBA, and became an intermediary lender. We started doing larger loans and then moved over the bridge to the Western Shore, where Baltimore is, in 2012. Back in 2020, we became a SBA Women's Business Center in both Baltimore and Salisbury. So we have some enhanced services there. You can find out all about that at www.marylandcapital.org or at Women's Business Center at marylandcapitalenterprises.org. So, most people think of us as a place to get money. We are a CDFI, a Community Development Financial Institution. So, people think of us as a nonprofit bank, but really, we're not quite that. We are a lender. We are a SBA intermediary lender. That means that while the SBA doesn't fund our loans, they back our loans. So, they'll back a certain percentage of our loans. We get our funding from different federal and state sources and even some private sources through donations and loans. But importantly, we also offer what we call technical assistance, and that's through one-on-one counseling, webinars just like this, occasional classroom sessions, and our Women's Business Conference in March in Salisbury. It's good to know that most things that we provide are absolutely free, whether or not you're applying for a loan. The only thing here that costs any money is that the conference does have a ticket price. We are able to help you wherever you're at in your business, whether you're just starting up or you're looking to expand, or maybe you've got some issues going on. Talk to us. We've got some experts in house, and we can even bring some outside help in as well. But let's start talking about the first steps to get your business started. So first off, starting your business is going to be, fun and rewarding and exciting, but it's also going to be a lot of work and a lot of hard work. And one way to help, ease that pain is to make sure that you're doing enough planning ahead of time. So you really want to get a thorough business plan written before you start. You want to make sure that you're creative. You're going to have a lot of things that are going to go wrong, a lot of things that you plan for. So you want to make sure that you can think on your feet. And you've got to understand that starting your own business is going to be a lot more work than working for somebody else. So the way I like to look at it is building a foundation for your business. So if you see in downtown Baltimore, a block that's got a fence around it with a picture of a pretty skyscraper, and for 18 months nothing happens, then stuff starts to go, and 6 months later it's open and bustling. Those 18 months, it's not that nothing's happening, it's that they're putting in the work to build the foundation. They're doing all the environmental studies, getting all of their permits, making sure they know what they're doing, and then building that bottom base of the building. Then it's real easy to build up and get thriving. So you want to think about it just like that. So there's a lot of reasons why people start businesses. Number one is, of course, getting money. And number two is getting that money by doing something that you're actually interested in or passionate about. We have a lot of folks who, are looking for a second career as they start their small business, and that's a great reason to do it. It's also for folks who figured out how to turn their hobby into possibly a full-time job. So they want to start a business that's focused on that. Do get to be your own boss. Once the business is up and running, you do get some more flexible hours. And as I said before, you're developing that other career. So this is what I like to call the scary slide. We'll look at all these numbers about businesses that close within the first 2, 5, and 10 years. But that isn't telling the whole story. It is risky to start a business, and no matter how you set it up, there is going to be personal risk involved. But there's lots of reasons why businesses close. There are serial entrepreneurs who start a business, it runs successfully for 5 years, they get bored with it, they close it, and they start something out new. A lot of the times that happens in the restaurant industry. You get these great Michelin star chefs. They get a business in one cuisine. They do really, really well. They get bored with it. They close it. They open up a new concept. So, even though a lot of businesses do close, there are lots of good reasons for businesses to close. So, We're going to start talking about, the questions you want to ask yourself before starting a small business. And I'm not going to go ahead and read all these to you because this slides will be available to you. But what you really want to think about is first, why are you doing this? If you're doing this because you want to have an easier life than you have at your current job, odds are that's not going to happen. Owning a business is not easy. It's rewarding, but it takes a lot of work and a lot of time. Then you want to think about, what kind of business do you want to open and what does your customer look like? How much money are they making? Where do they live? What is their profession? Things like that. You also want to think, are you providing products or services or a little bit of both? And how are you going to get those products or the materials you need to perform those services? You got to understand that as you're starting your business, it takes a while to get profitable. So you might need to think about saving some money up so that you can be comfortable while your business is getting started. Also, you might need extra money to start that business. You want to think about, are there other businesses in the area that do what I do? Am I going to be home based or am I going to have a storefront or an online presence? Are you doing it on your own or are you going to need to employ people? And if you do, what are the laws around that? Like I said, what type of suppliers do you need? How much money you need to get started? And then, how you're going to get that money. Are you going to need to take out a loan? Are you going to need to talk to a bank or a CDFI? You also want to think about that lag time. If you need to do build out for your salon, it's going to take a while that you're paying rent before you're making money. How are you going to run that? Also, your competition, no matter how unique you are, there are competitors for you, and understanding who they are and what they do well and how you can compete with them is very important. You also want to think about your pricing, your legal structure, your taxes, your business needs insurance, what kind do you have, and then how are you going to get the word out about your small business? Are you the type of business that needs to do social media, traditional advertising? Are you more of like a professional business where you're going to be going to conferences or maybe going into offices and advertising one-on-one? There are 10 steps that I like to say to start a small business. They are numbered, but they're not necessarily numbered in order of importance or in the order that you need to do them, but they are all very important. The first one is to get as much assistance and training as you can. There is nowhere else in the country that has resources for free like the Maryland area. Talk to all of us. Ask us all the same questions. We have different experiences and we can give you different answers. And then you can use all of that to figure out the best way to run your business. Then you're going to have a written business plan. This is something that we're happy to help you with. We're going to go into detail about what needs to be in that plan, but a strong business plan, which does not mean a super long business plan, is really going to help you ground yourself as you're starting your business. Also, like I said before, if you're going to have employees, you need to figure out what those responsibilities you have based on your state, county, and city. Your location, if you're opening up a storefront, if you open up in a main street, oftentimes the local jurisdiction will pay for some of your signage or for some of your facade work. So choosing a location is more than just, what street do I want to have it on? There are incentives to move to certain places. Then your legal structure. Are you going to be an LLC that takes more of the risk off of you as a person, or are you going to be, a sole proprietor or some sort of corporation where there's a little bit more risk, but maybe a little bit less paperwork? Do you want to register your business and think about, are you going to open a number of small businesses or are you just going to have one? Because if you're going to open a number of small businesses, you might want to have an umbrella. Nick's Dill Pickle Company is under Nick Rudolph LLC as a DBA or doing business as, because I might get sick of doing dill pickles or I might want to add, capers or something onto that as a separate business. You also want to register for your state and local taxes. And the way you do that is you go to the IRS website, you get your EIN number, then you go to the state business website. I can put the link in the chat in just a bit. And then you can register your business. It'll walk you through the steps. There is a fee. There's a $300 annual fee to start your business and to run your business. You will have to pay that. Then you need to talk to your local jurisdiction and see what type of licenses and permits you need. Do you need the health department? Do you need a occupancy permit? Do you need the fire department? Based on your business, you will have different needs for different licenses and permits you need. Then you want to think about financing your business. Are you independently wealthy? Do you have family or friends that are going to invest in you? Or are you going to have to go out and get a loan or find a way to raise that money? And then you want to develop your marketing plan. And as we go through the business plan, we're going to talk about how the marketing plan is just so much more than how you're going to advertise your business. So, one part of that is understanding your market. So, you really want to understand sort of where the money is, where you are, how your business type is doing in your market, and if there's room for you to compete. So, the way you do that is really through research. And the way you do that is by using your friend Google. So, do an internet search and look for industry publications, government websites, your local chamber of commerce, or other trade organizations, and they'll have information about what's going on in the marketplace and also about, if there's room for you, if there are other businesses that can help you out. All of that will be in there. And what you want to do is you want to find quotes that you can put into your business plan, especially if you're looking for a loan that's showing that there is room for your business where you are and that it is possible for you to make some money. Um, so I've got a question. Somebody has a LLC currently, but they haven't done anything with it but plan. Do we still need to file taxes? So if you've made absolutely no money, you can decide to not file taxes. Filing taxes, though, does help keep your business sort of getting older. And as the older your business is, the more incentives that you're available for, the larger loans that you can get. So filing taxes helps prove that your business has been going on. Plus, if you're spending money on your business and you file taxes, that can have personal benefits for you. I am not a tax lawyer, but we've got some consultants who can help with that as well. All right. So now we're going to talk about some advantages and disadvantages for starting a small business, a little pro and con list. So of course, folks think I'm going to be my own boss. If I'm my own boss, I can't get fired. The more I work, the harder I work, the smarter I work, the more money I'm going to be bringing in for myself, doing something that I love or am passionate about. And then also, the reason why we exist as a nonprofit is because we believe that small businesses build stronger communities. And as growing your business, you're going to be hiring folks and you're going to be providing jobs and livelihoods for families in your area. So, some of the cons, especially as you're starting up, you're going to be working a lot. It's going to be a financial risk for a couple of reasons because you're not going to have as much time to work on your job, possibly. And number two, you're going to be putting money out for a business that you are not 100% sure will be successful. So, that's why you want to plan as much as possible so that you can have the greatest success rate. You're not going to be making money for a while. You need to think about that. You also might need additional education and training. And that might be because, number one, it's required for your business, or number two, it's going to help give you an advantage, something over the other folks in your area. You're not going to be taking a lot of vacations, especially as you start. You're not going to have a lot of free time for yourself as you start. And while you are the boss, you also have a lot of bosses. All of your customers are your bosses. The folks you're borrowing money from are your bosses. And even your employees, to some degree, are your bosses. So before I go into the business types where there might be grants available, are there any questions? Nope. All righty. So these are some business types that are often, or I guess sometimes, eligible for grants. There are not a lot of grants for small businesses outside of those facade improvement grants, but occasionally there are for certain business owners, veteran, women, minority-owned businesses. And there's also for certain business types, whether it's green, education, childcare, other health-related businesses. And the way that you would find out about that is through your state's Department of Commerce website, your county economic development organization. They are going to know where those grants are. They're generally not very big grants, but $1, $2, $5,000 for free is helpful for any small business. So, what do you need to make it? What are your keys for success? So, number one, you're going to have experience in your industry. Or if you're looking down at the bottom there, you're going to need to find a way to get those skills, whether that's through education or through a mentor. Now, I would, most cases, suggest that you get those skills before you start that business, but sometimes timing doesn't work like that, and that's okay. Then you want to think about your business management experience, and that's both doing the paperwork and managing employees. So, if you were a shift leader at McDonald's or Taco Bell when you were in high school or college, you've got business management experience because you do know what it's like to manage employees. So, you want to think about how much you have and if there are any gaps in there that you want to get additional education on. And then you want to be a good improviser. We're going to plan for everything that could possibly go wrong in your business. I've opened up a number of restaurants with other folks, and we've planned for everything that could go wrong. And then, we're having our first friends and family night, and a pipe in the ceiling bursts, and there's water all over the kitchen. So things are going to pop up that you just can't plan for. And the more you can improvise and think on your feet, the easier it's going to be to solve those problems. A lot of small business owners, especially folks who are in a consulting or in a law field, actually take comedy improv classes just to work that muscle. So there are lots of different ways to gain skills, and some of them can even be fun. So, when you're starting that small business, there are a few legal things that you're going to need to do. Number one, there are different zoning restrictions and requirements. You don't want to open up a small manufacturing business and then find out that where you put your factory or where you put it inside of your house, it's not allowed. So you want to check with those requirements. You also want to check with the licensing requirements and make sure that you're fully licensed because you don't want to be shut down. Then all of the rest of these we're going to start talking about as part of your bail team. So that's your insurance, your baking, and the way we think about that is you want to have somebody of these in your pocket. So your banker. You want to develop a relationship with the business banker as early as possible, ideally way before you need money. The way you do that is you go to your local bank or whatever bank you've got an account in, and just ask, do you have a local business a business banker? If they do, they will set you up with a meeting with them and just say, hey, look, I'm thinking about starting up, a cupcake business. And, I'm looking for advice of what to do and then what to start thinking about if I want to get that loan. These folks are going to be there to help you out. Most banks have free programs for people who are looking to start or expand their small businesses. Take advantage of them. As you're planning, keep them in the loop. Talk to them every quarter, every 6 months. The reason why is they will see you as a person, they'll get to know you, they'll care about you, they will fight for you harder. Part of that is being honest and transparent. If you have got credit problems, let your banker know right away because they're going to help you to improve your credit and they'll know about loans that might be available for folks who don't have perfect credit. In fact, that's why we exist. Then you're going to need an accountant. That doesn't mean you need to have one that you're paying for, but again, you want to have somebody who understands your small business. And if you've got the money, you really do want to pay for this. And there's a couple of reasons. Number one, they're going to make sure your taxes are right and it's going to give you some protection in case of an audit. But number two, there are reports all throughout the year that you need to be filling out, small amounts you might need to pay in order to stay in good standing with the state. And the reason why you want to stay in good standing is because you're not eligible for things like loans from our organizations like us if you are not in good standing. The good news is getting into good standing once you're out is pretty easy to do. There's usually just some forms and maybe some money to spend, and you're instantly back in good standing. Number three, an insurance agent. It doesn't matter what kind of business you have, you are going to need some sort of liability insurance. And the way or the amount that you're going to need is going to vary drastically on your business type. If you're just like an online business selling things that aren't inherently dangerous, your policy might be $600 to $1,000 a year. But if you start putting in things like food, transportation, kids, animals, anything like that, those numbers are going to go up. So you want to talk to an insurance agent again before you need it, so you can figure out exactly what you need and what it's going to cost, so that you're fully insured. And then again, same thing with the lawyer. Find out where the small business lawyers are in your area. Just get to know them a little bit so that you know who you want to go to if you do have an issue. You also want to save a little bit of money just in case you need it. If you've got $1,000 in your business account, as a retainer for a lawyer, something pops up, you can get a couple of hours to get you started. So now we're going to go into the second half, which is the business plan and cash flow and how to actually get money for your business. So before that, are there any general questions about starting a small business? And for folks who may have come late, I am going to put my contact information in the chat again. All right, not hearing anything, we're going to talk about business plans. So, the truth is, no matter what kind of business you have, you need a business plan. Even if you've been existed in existence for a while, you want to put something together, even if it's just a couple of pages. And there's a couple of reasons for that. As you're starting it out, it is the blueprint for your business. Those first couple of months and even couple of years as you're running your business, you're going to get to what we call in the restaurant industry the weeds. There's going to be a lot going on, and you could easily miss things or get confused about what you need to do next. If you've got a strong business plan, it's going to ground you and it's going to give you an idea of what the next step is for your small business. But there's lots of reasons why folks use business plans. A big one is to get loans. So there are going to be different folks that are reading your business plan for different reasons. For instance, if you're going for a grant, you're going to really want to highlight, how your business is a strong part of the community. Maybe you're hiring ex-offenders or you're hiring folks from within your community, whatever that is. That's great in a grant application. Also, in a loan application, that kind of stuff is really nice, but banks care about getting their money back. So you want to highlight the way that you're going to be able to make sure to pay them back. So you really do want to start with a larger business plan and then move things around, maybe take things out, add things based on who's going to read the business plan. So we break ours up into four areas. Um, we like that the best but that's just general. You know how to tell your story better than we do. So as long as all this information is in the business plan and it's easily accessible, you can order it in different ways. But the first part that I like to suggest is the executive summary. This is your elevator speech. This is what's going to get folks interested and get them to continue reading the plan. And I suggest the way to do it is first starting off with an opening sentence, setting up who you are and what you're looking for. So if for my example business of Nick's Dill Pickles, I would say Nick's Dill Pickles LLC is a wholesale pickling company based out of Baltimore, Maryland. We are seeking a loan of $15,000 to purchase new pickling equipment to meet our new needs through a restaurant deal. So then those folks understand who I am, what I'm doing, what I need, and why I need it. Then you want to talk about, what brought you into that business. So why are you passionate about it? Did you see family members not being taken care of in assisted living facilities, and you want to do better for that next generation? Talk about that, and then talk about the way that you were educated and why you've got some experience and you're able to open up that small business. Then you're going to talk just a little bit about what your business does specifically, and then again, make that ask, but just a little bit more detailed. Talk about specifically what you're going to purchase, and specifically why those things are important. The next section is the longest section, and that's the marketing plan. And as I said before, it's way more than just how you're going to advertise your business. So the first thing is you're going to use all that research that you did to find out about your place in the market, and you're going to talk about it. You're going to describe your industry. You're going to use quotes to show that not only is your industry growing, but it's growing in the area that you're in. And it doesn't need to be a whole book. It just needs to be a couple of small quotes. Then you want to list your competition. What I suggest doing is listing three competitors, listing what they do well and how you're going to compete with them. What is your special sauce? Is it, customer service? Do you have a product or a service that nobody else has? Is it your pricing? What is it that sets you apart? Then you also want to think about your pricing. Are you high end, middle of the road, or a value proposition? And that's going to be based on who your target customer is. Most businesses can serve everybody, but you really want to figure out if the demographic that you can get in, that if you can get them in, they're going to keep you open. So if you're opening up a salon, sure, you can cut anybody's hair, but you might say, look, based on where I am, my market is going to be, African American women between 25 and 55 years old who make between 75 and $150,000 a year. Because that means you'll be able to advertise more specifically, you'll be able to get your products in more specifically, and you'll be able to tailor your business more specifically. Once you've done that, then you want to think about how you're going to advertise your business. And in a business plan, we don't want to see just, we're going to do a social media campaign. What we want to see is how you're going to use it, what platforms you're going to use, how often you'll be posting. And if you're not in that type of business, like if you're in assisted living, you might be just going, to hospital or to places that might refer to you, as opposed to doing ads on, Facebook or any other social media. The next section is your organization or operations section. This is going to describe, the specifics of your business, your legal form, your location, what kind of insurance you have. Will you have employees? If so, are they going to be 1099 contractors or W-9 full-time employees? There's, different reasons why you might want to do that based on your specific business type. You're going to talk about your hours. If you're brick and mortar, when are you going to be in the store? If you're not, when are you answering the phone? How are you dealing with customer service? And very importantly, what about a contingency plan? If you get sick and you can't work for 6 weeks or 3 months, how is your business going to run? Have you trained friends and family? Are you going to get enough employees that they can run without you? And as you also want to think a little bit about COVID. We are sort of getting towards the end of that. But what happens if you're a customer or an employee that's client facing, says that they tested positive? How are you going to let folks know? And then the last section is your financial plan. And that's going to look different whether or not you're a startup or an existing business. If you're a startup, you're going to talk about what your startup costs are, how much sales you're going to need to do to break even, which means pay your bills, pay your employees, pay yourself, and pay us. And you're also going to want to think about, looking into the future. We're going to require at least 2 years of cash flow projections of what you're going to be doing moving forward. And the future isn't just about the amount of money you're bringing in. Do you have an idea for expansion? Do you think you're going to sell the business at some point in time? That's, really what you want to look for. It's also when you are applying for a loan, especially at a CDFI, a place where you can talk about your personal credit. So, were there some issues in the past? Did you have a bankruptcy 10 years ago? Did you have a bankruptcy 3 years ago? The more upfront you are about that, the easier it is for us to mitigate that. The thing that we dislike the most are surprises. So if somebody tells us that they're going to have great credit and then we can see that they haven't paid their mortgage in a year, they know they haven't paid their mortgage in a year. They told us differently. That speaks to their character and that makes it harder to get them a loan. So before I go into the cash flows, are there any questions about the business plan? Nope. All righty. So what are cash flows and why do we need them? Well, cash flows are going to show us the amount of money that are coming in and the amount of money that's going out so that you can figure out whether or not your business is making money. They're also really required for most loans and also most grants. They're just a great planning tool. The more detailed you make them, the more useful it's going to be for you as a business owner. It's going to show that difference between money coming in and profit. If you're bringing in $5 million a week, but it's costing you $5.1 million a week to do your services, you do not have a successful business. Also, it's just good governance. You are responsible for your business. The more you know about your cash flows, the stronger your business will be. And then, most importantly, it's going to show you when you can start taking money out of the business for yourself. So you see this big scary sheet on the right-hand side. This is our cash flow projection spreadsheet. The good news is it's much simpler than it looks. It's a living document that's going to change over the life of the business. And not only will they not be 100% accurate, the majority of these cells are not going to be exactly what you're going to be spending, and that's okay. We're just looking for an understanding that you understand what it's going to cost to run your business and have a realistic expectation about how much money is going to be coming in. We had somebody who had a one-person handmade wedding invitation business. They charged about $1,000 a wedding, and in their cash flows, they said, "Well, there's 10,000 weddings a year in Maryland, and $1,000 a pop. I'm going to make $10 million." Well, this is a one-person shop. They're not doing 10,000 weddings. Not everybody has wedding invitations. Some people get the courthouse marriage. Some people make their own. People have destination weddings with just a few people. There's lots of reasons why they're not going to have that. So we got the person to show us that, on 5 or 10 a month, they're going to make enough money to support themselves and support their business. You also want to break down your income and your expenses as much as possible. So, looking at income, thinking about a restaurant, you might say dine in, carry out, or catering. Or if you've got a sit down restaurant with a bar, you might be breaking it up between food and liquor. So, if you think, I'm going to open up this restaurant, it will have an alcohol program, but really it's going to be 70% food and 30% alcohol. And then you look at your numbers in 6 months. and you see that you're doing 60% food and 40% alcohol. If you've got, detailed cash flows and you can look at them based on what you're bringing in and spending, you can figure out, is the issue that your food program is weak, or is the positive thing that your drink program is strong? And then based on that, you can figure out where you want to invest your resources. You also want to think about, do your sales change month to month? If you're a landscaper, you're probably busier in April and May than you are in December and January, and your cash flows should reflect that. You also want to think about your loan as income and your loan payments as expenses. A lot of times we get these and they don't show that money coming in or that money coming out, and that's really important, for understanding the finance of your business. Also, if you've got other loans related to your business, put that in there, and those payments as an expense. We are going to find out about them. And again, the last thing we like are surprises. And then lastly, we are a nonprofit. We want you to have, a quality of life. We want you to be able to have a house, a car if you need it, food, clothing, and a little bit of fun. So are you paying yourself? It's important that you're paying yourself, because if you don't have yourself comfortable, it's going to be hard to keep a business running comfortably. So before I go into the way that the loans work at a CDFI, are there any questions about cash flows? And while you're thinking of those, we are able to do a one-on-one session with you absolutely for free, whether or not you're applying for a loan, to do 24 months of cash flow projections about your business with you. We'll do it over a Zoom. We'll send it to you in a spreadsheet that's got all of the equations so that you can do the math. So any questions? Alrighty, so now we are going to talk about small business loans. The real reason why most folks are here. How are we going to get money for our business? So this is specific to Maryland Capital Enterprises. We have a couple of loan products. The first is our traditional small business loan. If you've been around for 2 full years or less, you're eligible for up to about $35,000. If you've been around for 2 full years, and that means not just registered, it means actually bringing in money, or more, you're eligible for up to about 150,000. The terms of the loans are going to be determined on the size of them. I'd say a $50,000 loan is probably going to be 6 or 7 years. 35 will probably be 5 or 6 years. Anything 100 or more will probably be 10 years. While our interest rates are currently set at 6 to 12%, I could say, for a number of years, the majority of our loans are going out right about 8%. Some maybe at 7, some maybe at 9, but generally that's about where it's at. These loans do require collateral. Of course, wholly owned real estate is the best, but we can be very flexible about it. Of course, again, 100% collateralized is the best, but we can be flexible with that as well. We can even use property out of state, other people's property. But you may think you don't have collateral, but you might. These are personally guaranteed loans, and anybody who owns 20% or more of the business is going to have to personally guarantee it. And if you have an ownership structure with a number of people where nobody owns 20%, we're going to want to see 3 or 4 people personally guaranteeing that loan. There is an application fee. This is one of the few times that we take money. It's $100 plus $25 per owner who owns 20% or more, and that's for the credit card fee. We pull TransUnion and we do soft pulls, so it will not impact your credit score or show up. We will be able to give you a full copy of your credit report. Assuming that it's a yes, there are closing fees. We take them out of the loan proceeds. Usually, a $50,000 loan is going to go out about, 48,250 or somewhere around there. We do automatic payments once a month out of your business checking account. That's generally the 1st or the 15th. There are no prepayment penalties. So as long as your loan is 30 days older, you can just give us a call. We'll tell you exactly what you owe. You can make that payment and it's just the principal. On the other side, if you are unable to make a payment and you know that a week ahead of time and you let us know, we can do something. We can defer a payment. We can go to interest only. We can even restructure the loan. We want to be helping you all improve your credit scores, so we don't want to be putting any dings on your credit scores. So we will work with you. Twice a year, we're going to visit you throughout the life of the loan. It could be virtual or in person, depending on your business. We're going to want to see a little bit about your finances. We're going to ask you a bunch of questions, and then we're going to let you know about other resources that we may have for you. The big question, is my business eligible and what can I spend that money on? Well, basically, any small business for us that's located on the Eastern Shore Baltimore City, Baltimore County, Anne Arundel County, Harford County, or Cecil County is eligible for our loans, except for a few very small exceptions. Traditional sin industries, 100% alcohol, 100% tobacco, adult bookstores, things like that. However, we are able to work with both medical and recreational cannabis. As far as uses, just about any small business expense. So you can, pay for your rent, you can build out space, you can buy your own property, furniture, equipment, things like that. It's good for salaries, basic business supplies. The only things that we really can't do are if you're a home-based business, we can't pay your rent, mortgage, or utilities. And if you're in like a property investment business, we can't purchase a building that you are not going into. We can't rehab a building that you are not going into, but we can do things like get your truck, build out your office, get big reusable equipment. So, big saws, yes, drywall, no. But we can work with you to figure out the best way to fund that loan. Um, the second kind of loan that we have is our credit builder loan. And this is for folks who might have some credit issues, some folks who are just dipping their toe into entrepreneurship. You're really good at detailing cars. You want to see if maybe you can start a business, or you've got an existing business with an issue that it doesn't cost a lot of money. It needs to be fixed quickly. A tree root grew through a pipe, something like that. These are going to go $500 to $5,000. They're generally going to be a 2-year term, and they're all going to be at 9%. Collateral is not required, and everything else is the same except for much lower application and closing costs. So those are the loans we have right now. Occasionally, we get some funding to do other specific loans. Sometimes those are for veterans or women-owned businesses or minority-owned businesses. But right now, this is what we have. Um, so how do you get a loan through us? Well, we got some eligibility criteria. The first of which is we want to see that business plan. We want to see your experience in the field or how you're going to get that. We're going to look at the strength of your cash flow. We're going to consider your collateral, and we're looking for reasonable credit. You notice that we don't have a score on there. We don't have a minimum credit score. What we're looking for is what have you been doing in the last 12 to 24 months? Do you have missed payments? Do you have money past due? Are you paying your mortgage? Are you paying your car bill? Are you paying your credit card bills? There are really only two disqualifiers. It doesn't mean an absolute yes if you don't have these, but two things are just absolute no's. That's a bankruptcy discharge in the last 24 months or owing state or federal taxes without a payment plan. Now, with the taxes, you can apply for the loan, but we're not going to be able to close it until you've got that payment plan worked out with the IRS or the state. We're also looking for the general economic conditions for the venture. Is this the right time to be opening this type of business where you're at? Or, are you opening up a pizza shop on a block with 6 other pizza shops? How are you going to compete? And then your ability to repay the loan. If the business is not successful, can you get back into the workforce to pay off that loan because you are still going to owe that money? So, what are the documents that you need? We do all of ours online. There's a client intake form, a loan application, and then a simplified personal financial statement that we call a personal information supplement. You're going to be required to upload some documents. If you're a new business, anything about business history, of course, won't be required. But if you're an existing business, we're going to be looking for 2 years of profit and loss statements, assuming you've been around that long. Your most recent quarterly balance sheet, 2 years of business tax returns, and 3 months of corporate bank statements. We're also going to need proof that the loan was turned down by another lender. That doesn't mean you have to have gone through a whole application process. A conversation is enough. Everybody, regardless of whether they're new business or expanding business, are going to need to have 2 years of personal federal tax returns. And if business and federal are on the same, that's absolutely fine. And 3 months of personal bank statements. There's also, you can add other things. Reference letters are great. You can give us any other relevant attachments if you've got an LOI, a lease, contracts, certifications, invoices, marketing materials, websites, social media. Did a local news station do a story on your business? Anything like that that's going to help tell your story will probably help get you closer to a yes. Generally, what we're doing, we're accepting applications through I'm sorry, that's changed now to the second Friday of the month. You'll be assigned staff member who will help make sure that your application is in order. They will review your business plan and your cash flows, or even help you develop your cash flows and business plan. They'll give you ideas to tailor it specifically for the folks that are going to be making the decision, and that's our loan committee. We've got one in Baltimore and one in Salisbury because the economies on the shores are very different. So we have got folks that are more familiar on each side. They're going to meet in the fourth week of the month. They're going to determine the rate and the term of the loan. Now, as far as the amount goes, we generally only fund or don't fund loans. And the reason for that is if you ask us for $50,000 and we give you 25, we are setting you up for failure with $25,000 in debt. So it used to say back in the day, if you need 50,000, apply for 100. That is no longer the way it is. Apply for exactly what you need. Assuming it's a yes, we're going to issue a commitment letter, and generally the loans are funded in 3 to 4 weeks. There are sometimes some courts involved that might make it last a little bit longer, but we try to get these done as quickly as possible. So, before I wrap up and open it up for any questions at the end, again, I'd like to reiterate that there is nowhere else in the country with more great free small business resources than where you are right now. So, go to your local library. Most of them have a business center. Talk to your county economic development office. Most counties have those. They're going to know about the grants. They might know about loan programs. They might know about incentives. Join your chamber. Get to know, visit that Maryland Department of Commerce website. There's so much the SBA has, the Small Business Development Center, SCORE. You can get one-on-one mentors to help you develop all these documents and grow your business. Local universities. We work a lot with Salisbury and Morgan State, but all throughout the state, there are great universities that are looking for ways to help small businesses, whether or not they're alumni. So talk to them and see what they have. And then any type of local organization, if there's a Main Street, if there's a downtown partnership, anything like that, joining that will help you become more part of the community, will help strengthen your business. So now, before I end it fully, these are the 5 things I like to end all my presentations for. So these are things to consider when you're looking for business capital. Number one, if you can keep your day job, keep it. If can show you've got money coming in, it's going to give you a better chance of getting a yes on the loan. Unless you're an accountant, and even if you are an accountant, you need an accountant to some degree. And the reason why is you just want to make sure you're not missing anything. You want to stay in good standing. As I said in that last slide, ask for help. You got nowhere else better in the country, so go ahead and ask us all the same questions. Figure out who you like working with. Take all of our experiences and use them. This is also when you're looking for a loan, not the time to be spending money. So you don't want to be opening up credit cards, purchasing houses, purchasing cars as you're going for a business loan. And then also the no business is an island. The reason why folks go to small businesses is because they feel like small businesses are part of the community. So be part of your community. Give the local charities. Join your chamber or commerce or Rotary. You want to just sponsor that softball team. Anything you can do to be part of the community. Unfortunately, we are living in a time where there's like a lot of political stuff going on. So you want to be careful about your charities. That's why things like animals, veterans, food banks, things like that are safe. You walk into a bar, there's a reason why there's sports on and not news, because if it was, Fox News or CNN, it's going to turn off half of the people that are walking in. And really, unless you're a political business, your customer should not know the way that you're voting. So we've got 2 more webinars coming up before the end of the year. We've got an SBA financing options webinar coming up on December 4th, and I'm going to be going into some detail about business plans and cash flows on December 10th. And with that, I will open it up to any questions. My contact information is right there on the screen. Miri is our Women's Business Center coordinator in Baltimore. She's also great. So you email either one of us. We can get you all of these documents, and we can also answer any of your questions. And with that, are there any questions? Alrighty, not a lot of questions tonight. I put my contact information one more time in the chat. I think of my best questions when these things end. So feel free to, give me an email and I'll get back to you tomorrow. I'll be in the office, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you again real soon. Thanks for coming.